Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with audio engineer Luther Banks discussing switching from an architecture path to music, owning and losing a studio under unfortunate circumstances, and landing a great opportunity for growth in his career here at Patchwork Recording Studios. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with Patchwork audio engineer and just all over voice and sound extraordinaire, Luther Banks. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I've had the privilege of knowing you over the years since beginning my career here at Patchwork Recording Studios, but we also know you for not only the work that you do here as the sound engineer, audio engineer, but you do some voiceover work. And so, and you've been doing that for a while, as well as just like being a really cool, humble guy. So we got to get into the story of how it all started for Luther.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know early on your introduction, something that we share is that you actually played an instrument that I played, the clarinet.
Yes I did.
Was that your introduction? What was your introduction to music like overall?
I mean, just around the house. You know what I'm saying? My father liked to tell the story of how they were going to be the Decatur Jackson 5. And not really, but
as in him and his
brothers. Because
nice.
He's got it's three brothers, three sisters, a whole big family, and that's just kind of what they thought they were going to be. A couple of people played instruments, and a few of my uncles and aunts, and then cousins, they all sing and play instruments and do something other than just a regular 9-to-5. So I come from that.
It was family.
I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, and then eventually learning or playing the drums and so on and so forth. Where did you see yourself in music? You end up landing upon engineering at some point, but I want to know, where did you see yourself originally in music, if you did?
Well, to be honest, it was just a hobby. You know what I mean? Drums seemed cooler than the clarinet.
Of course, yeah. Everybody wanted to play the drums after. They're like, the woodwind instruments is not for me. Especially guys, they're like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was just a hobby at first. You know what I'm saying? I was doing it. We both, me and my brother we were going to have an instrument, and I chose drums. He chose saxophone. And I think that I thought that drums were going to be easier too. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have to read music at the time.
Right.
But I was wrong. Drums was extremely hard.
Yeah.
So, but what wound up happening was with the drum kit, I just kind of fell out of love with it. Sold it, bought a weight machine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. That was a nice transition.
Yeah.
And I kind of set it down for a while. Because in high school, what wound up happening is in high school, I actually started getting heavy into drafting and architecture.
Nice.
We had a drafting class at Forest Park High School.
Now, educate me on drafting.
So drafting is if an architect comes to you with an idea, then as the draftsman, you have to actually draw it out technically.
Oh, nice.
And you have to know all of the codes and everything about construction in order to be able to draw it up right way, because those plans will eventually wind up in someone's hand who's actually building a house.
And you went to school on the south side, yeah?
Forest Park.
Yeah.
So that is all the way south side.
All the way south side. Yeah, no, I'm familiar. Too familiar. It's pretty far. So that's cool. What ultimately deterred you from really pursuing the drafting and architecture?
Well, so I started Clayton State as a architectural major, and one of the things that they offered was an activities fee is what they charged us. So they actually started really doing the activities. So we would have karaoke day, basically, every, I think it was either Friday or Saturday, and I got up. And somebody liked what I did, so fine. We did, the next one was outside in front of the whole campus, so I did that. And
you were singing?
Singing, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So from that point, somebody from the arts and music department came and got me because they wanted me to sing the Black National Anthem at the end of a play about the Queens of Africa.
Wow.
So they said, can you do this? Yes, I can. By the way, can you do it by tomorrow? Because we're doing the play tomorrow, and we want you to sing this tomorrow.
Oh my
Have
God.
you ever heard the Black National? I think I know it, but so basically I went and grabbed my brother. I said, look, you got to help me learn this.
Right.
I got up on stage, did it, and then the lady asked me, why aren't you in the music department?
Right.
I said, I don't know, maybe because my mama sat down for a year trying to get me into the architectural department, and I don't want to be killed. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to, you know what I mean? So, but I made the transition. I actually became a voice major at Clayton State.
Wow.
Made it. I think I was in it for a year before I kind of figured out that I needed to still be able to use the technical side of my brain. Right. The creative thing was great, and I love singing. It's more of a hobby for me now, and then I actually use it with what I do now as far as doing some vocal production and making sure people are on pitch and things like that. But for the most part, I needed to be able to use the technical side of my brain as well as the creative side, because I felt like I was getting lost.
Yeah. That's just something you genuinely you're passionate about, that technical side as well.
Yeah. Because me and my brother, we had a Commodore 64 when we were growing up, and we were taking that thing apart and putting it back together and buying books and manuals on. Because back in I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, you had to. It was one of those things where you had to type in and program a computer to do something. You would type that run thing, and then the snake would go around the screen, and it would make us so happy. You know what I mean? But now,
Can't imagine.
Exactly.
Can't imagine. I mean, even with I think it's cool that I'm around such technical people who have to keep up with technology in a sense of like things are ever changing, but they also, obviously have become easier for people to learn. So that's what I wanted to ask you too, because upon deciding, I don't know what led you to specifically audio and sound engineering, but you became a studio engineer, eventually a studio owner, which we'll talk about that as well. But the school part, you took to a program versus like the traditional, like SAE and like all of the traditional engineering schools. You were involved in something called the Recording Connection program.
Yes.
So that's where essentially you sign up and then you're sent out to the studios. Or could you tell me about the program?
So basically, you sign up for it and you choose a studio. So basically, they have you pick 3 studios. And at the time, I didn't know anything about studios.
Right.
So I chose the first one that just looked cool and was close to the house.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a mastering studio, which I didn't know what mastering was. I didn't know anything. And I got there, realized that, okay, I'm not going to be recording anybody. What's going on? But by chance, this guy had graduated from Berkeley. He was a multi-instrumentalist, drums, guitar, bass. He played, just amazing. And he had amazing ears. He was a mix engineer before, and he had friends around town that worked in different studios. So he would take me basically on field trips, and we would go to a guy who was producing music for MTV and go out to Tree Sound and hang out with a guy who was mixing a record and all this other stuff. So it turned out really well. And I got a really great hands-on education from someone who was incredible at what they did. And it was the reason I chose that route is because I had used basically all of my grant money, all the money I had for school at Clayton State when I thought I was on path to be an architect, right? And I was just broke. But I caught my dad right after he hit the lottery for like $5,000.
Swear.
So he paid
Nice.
for the recording connection. And you know
That's
what I'm
dope.
saying? Yeah.
That's dope. So it didn't require you to like sit through like a program or like how long was that program? Because it was hands-on. So were you learning like?
Yeah, so they actually send you a book as well.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So you actually have to do classwork and turn that classwork in and then go in and sit in on sessions and just learn by the same way we intern here. It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we had a hands-on thing. And then at the time, because I was kind of simultaneously setting up my own studio at the time, I had a little VS880, a Roland VS880, which is a 8-track digital recorder. And I was recording people at home and then bringing that in, and he could critique me.
Gotcha.
and let me know what I was doing wrong, because
That's
I was
dope.
doing a lot of stuff wrong.
Right, of course.
So from that, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't mind being criticized, because I know that I'm always in the process of learning. I took everything that he told me. He would allow me to plug it into his system so I could hear things on a really nice system and just figure out what it was that I needed to do. And the thing is, like, being an engineer is always learning, right? You have to be open to that. If you're not, then you're going to get stagnant and you're going to get left behind.
Right.
Because Pro Tools didn't stop it. You know what I'm saying? And there's always new features. Clients aren't stopping, and they're bringing in stuff. You know what I'm saying? We had to upgrade our computers, our Pro Tools, because people were walking in the door and saying, okay, these are our files. Why can't we open them up on your computer?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it never stops. So it's constantly learning.
It's like troubleshooting all the time.
Exactly. You know what I mean? That's one of the
job.
criteria around here. You know what I'm saying? If you can't troubleshoot, then we can't put you on a session.
Facts.
Right?
Facts.
So,
yeah.
But that taught me that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I have to have an open mind, because I'm not going to know everything.
Right. Absolutely. So, I mean, let's talk about the education piece. As an audio engineer, after do you feel like you kind of just answered that, but there's no real like cap of like how much you can learn from this space?
Not at all. Not at all. I
mean, do you genuinely feel like you're learning every day?
Yeah.
Even with 20 years experience?
Most definitely. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just being in conversations with the other engineers in the building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we have a lot of audio nerds in the building, right? And all you have to do is be in one conversation, and you'll come away with at least 4 or 5 new bits of information.
That's true.
And then not only that, I'm constantly walking around the building asking people, hey, do you want to learn something today? Because there's things that I do around here that I may set up that I know that we've never done before, and I want to give that information to my fellow engineers in the building.
Facts. And I mean, outside of just the technical stuff, I want to talk about, the other part of it that you learn in terms of like working with people and being personable, I should say, to people. Because you always have a very easygoing, we were talking about how your demeanor is more at ease before you do an interview, but just in general, I feel like you're very easygoing. And it's not really like a super up or super down with you, but that's, I'm sure, attributes to the way, and a lot of engineers here have to be with you don't know who your client might be some days.
Exactly.
You might have just met them for the first time. So can you speak to not only understanding the technical side, because a lot of times when I do like panels or whatever, and they're aspiring engineers and people who want to work in sound, they are very quiet, and which is fine, but like, at a point you have to talk to your client. So what's your advice on that bit of just like knowing that it's not just about being able to do the work, but also why is it important to have like some personable skills?
Right. I mean, so one of the things that I even tell our interns around here is that part of the reason why you're sitting in on sessions is not just because you want to see our tricks, because nothing that we're doing is a trick, you know what I'm saying? But what you want to pay attention to is how we're dealing with clients in the room, which is what I did when I first got here, because regardless of how long I'd been doing it, when I walked in the building, I had to be an intern, and I loved every minute of it. And I walked in with the mindset that, okay, I've got all this technical stuff down, but how do they deal with clients? Do they deal with clients the same way that I do? What's Corey's demeanor in the room? What's Dee's demeanor in the room? How is Mike dealing with a bad cable? You know what I'm saying? That's messing up this take, and the client's looking at him in the back of his head with laser beams. You know what I'm saying? How is all this being handled? And which is why when I sat in on sessions, I wasn't sitting. I never sat where I could see the computer. I sat where I could see the entire room, right? That way I could see if the guy over here who just came to hang out for the session is enjoying himself, right? And if he's not, is he whispering in the client's ear saying, hey man, you could have got this done cheaper somewhere else. And then that spills over into him having a bad attitude and having a bad take in the booth. And then how does Corey deal with that? You know what I'm saying? Does he let it ride, or does he crank the guy back up and get him into it and start, doing some little extra tricks so he can see that it's worth his time even being here? You know what I mean? If all hell breaks loose, you know what I'm saying? What do you do? The computer crashes, the cable doesn't work for the microphone that's on the bottom of the snare. You know what I'm saying? Do you just say, forget it?
Right.
Knock that out of the way, and we'll just do a stop top snare mic, or do we go through and actually take the time to troubleshoot
Right.
and run down what the problem is?
Right.
So
I mean,
that,
you're talking about, speaking of time, not to cut you off, but that also is a factor. It's like,
yeah,
your session is X amount of hours. And so, like, if something like technical happens in between, I'm sure that, well, what do you do in that situation where, client is like, but also my time, and there's another session coming in afterwards,
right.
It's
Move
like,
very fast. Move very fast. That's why I say if you're not able to troubleshoot, then you're going to lock up, right? Because you're going to look around and not know what the first step is
Right.
in order to solve that issue. Because I'm hyper aware of people's time and money, right? Because even though this is worth the money, I don't know where you work at. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how long you saved up to actually come and do this, right? So I want to make sure that I'm optimizing your time and making sure that you're getting exactly what it is that you need realistically. You know what I'm saying? Because some people walk in the door with this false sense of what they're going to get when they leave. But I want to manage that, you know what I'm saying? So that no matter what happens, you're still satisfied when you leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we kind of jumped around a little bit. So obviously
course.
that, like it's conversation. So it's cool. But like, I want to know how you ended up at Patchwork.
Okay.
Before you got to Patchwork, though, let's talk about you opening up. You were working towards opening up your studio all the
Right.
while you were learning. So you were a forward thinker in that way. Why or how did you become a studio owner? Let's start there.
Because I mean, just back to the beginning of it is I just didn't know anything about studios,
True.
right? Like my first entry into this was going through the recording connection and then connecting with that guy in the mastering studio. And then, yes, we were taking these field trips, but everybody that I was meeting was from Full Sail and all these other places. I'm like, man, there's no way that these people are going to hire me. You know what I'm saying? For me doing this mail order education. So I just, just me being who I am, I still wanted to do it, right? I guess once I started making moves, I got a keyboard off layaway, and my mom bought me a microphone and a mixer and a tape deck. So
Shout out to moms.
Exactly. She came around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna get punched in the.
Nah, they always support at the end of the day.
Get chopped
like,
in the throat.
They be like, I don't know what you're doing over there, but I'm gonna
Right.
try to support. That's what's up.
Yeah. So I mean, and from that point, it was just growing. You know what I mean, and learning. So once I had that worked out for a while. Got the VS 880. That worked out for a while. 1680, and all the while still learning. The great thing is that my youngest brother, all of his friends at the time were rapping. And
So you had clients.
Yeah, they needed a home. And at first it was just free because I'm learning. You know what I'm saying? They just had to buy a beat from me. You buy a beat, we can record you.
So you were producing too?
Yeah. Yep. I don't do that anymore. But
No?
yeah.
Why not?
At all.
What was...
So, oh man. So, the second time my studio got robbed.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually there, and duct tape, zip tied, gun in my face the whole time. Yeah, the whole thing. So they stole everything, right? And when I started, because, insurance kicked in, I started to get the gear back, I realized that I couldn't have all this bulky gear anymore, right? Because I had an MV8000 and a Motif ES6 and all this other stuff.
Where was your studio? It was like...
It was in my house.
It was at your house, so they came through the house?
They came in on me, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've kind of heard this story before, but that's insane. So upon trying to get your gear back, then what is your mindset?
Well, the thing was I wanted to be lean. So laptop.
Right.
I was going to produce inside the laptop, microphone, and just keeping everything as lean as possible that I could actually be mobile a little bit. And when I did that, I realized that I just had too many options in Logic, too many options in the software where I just never really liked anything that I did anymore. And it would take me where it would take me maybe 15 minutes to knock a beat out on the MV8000 and just bang it out. I would spend days on a beat. Like, what am I doing? It's just too much information. So back up a little bit. So basically, I started the home studio, got that up and running and booming off the chain, right? And then I got hit. I was out of town. Me and my lady were out of town. Cousin came over to check on the house. It had been robbed, right? Got everything back and started up again. and then they came in on me and got me. And after that, like I said, I was going to run a little leaner this time around so I could be mobile. So I was going around with a rolling bag and a backpack and setting up in people's bedrooms and recording them. Just whatever I could do to record, because I hadn't had a regular 9 to 5 since '98.
Right.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
you're like, I'm not trying to go back there.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I told a couple of my clients, I said, you know what, I'm finna go get a job. Dude said, a job?
Right.
What's a job, bro?
Right.
That's not what you do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What else can you do? And I came up with the little mobile idea, and I called all my clients and said, hey, if I came and set up in your living room, in your bedroom, would you pay me to record you? And they said, yeah. So that's just kind of how it went down.
Nice.
And then I had a guy who I was doing, putting out mixtapes. So he was a promotions guy. So in order to promote his clients, he would put together mixtapes and include their songs on there. And I was the one compiling that and putting it together and doing the drops and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. So he had an office in East Point, and he would allow me to come in and set up in the back of his office.
Nice.
And do that.
Nice.
Right. Then he got a bigger office, and he had me come over there, and then he talked to the owner, and I wound up with a studio underneath him because I rented my own office space. So it was a little more secure.
Right. A lot more secure than them coming into your house. That's crazy. Yeah. Atlanta, I tell you, man, just the city, people will rob you.
No. I tell people all the time, home studios are dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
They just are. You know what I'm saying? Because the problem is that it's not, you don't necessarily have to watch out for the person hanging out around on your street. It's the person who calls you and sets up studio time with you. Because you don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know, like, I had a rule in my house, no guns and no re-up, right?
True.
That's just what it was. True. You leave that wherever you leave that at. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's not, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't do any of that. So there's no reason for any of that to be in my house.
Right.
There's 50 of y'all here, so y'all are safe.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nobody's coming in here on us. Right. You know what I'm saying? So there's no need for it. Right. And then when I got to my space in East Point, the office space, it's basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason for you to have that here. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't smoke in here because that'll make me sick. I can't be in a smoke-filled room. That's just not how it works. Mm-hmm. And then the guys above me, you know what I'm saying? They were always there, so I had them looking out for me too at the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so everybody felt safer with me being in East Point at that point.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy.
But from there, I had a client who wanted to, who we recorded a record, and he was like, so how do we take this to the next level, right? And I had actually been, before I actually got here, I actually had been to one of the weekend workshops. I don't know if they were even calling them that then.
I don't know.
But it was a workshop where Mike was talking about how he had mixed the Nuck If You Buck record and explaining all that. And I think they had, there was somebody else on the panel.
Anthony looking like, really? Yes, he did.
I can't. Yeah. So I was here. So that was my first entrance into seeing Patrick. I hadn't heard it yet, but I had seen it. And then I came here to mix the record. We were in here, and Snotty was assisting me the first day, and we needed to track an extra vocal for something. Put the guy in the booth. Snotty set me up, patched it all in, and as soon as I heard it, the light bulb went on. I was like, okay, yeah, right. So this was January 2009, right? Nice. And I made up my mind. I'm closing this bitch down, and then I'm coming over here, right? So I saved up money, talked to my wife now. We're going to be broke for a little minute. So if you cool with that, I'm about to make this move so that I can actually start my career for real.
Right.
Because I felt like once I saw how this was running, once I saw how Curtis ran the office and the quality of everything here and how things happen here.
You knew you could
I could make a living here. You know what I'm saying? A real living here without the business owner thing hanging over my head. Because I'd gotten to the point after 2 robberies and starting this third iteration underfunded that I just wanted to be an engineer.
Right.
I want to get a paycheck.
Right.
That I can pay taxes on and collect at the end of the year. That's what I want again. Right. You know what I'm saying? I want some of that, you know what I mean?
That money.
Exactly. So fast forward to December 2009, I had found the recording connection again, right? Just so happens I got in under the wire because they were just about to cut ties with them.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and I got in again. Snotty was my teacher. I learned a little bit from D, and when D couldn't do it, Corey would pick up, you know what I'm saying, and do my lessons. And this was January 1st. This was January 2010. I was in the building, right, doing that. I think Snotty got busy with a client, and he asked Kurt if I could just come and be in the building. And Kurt said yes.
Nice.
And I told my wife, and she said, "Oh, damn." So at the time, there was an intern here. His name was Muzzy. And I just got on his schedule, 10 to 6 every day, right? Unless I had to get my wife her car back. But you know what I'm saying? I got on his schedule. And it was to the point to where I was leaving out of the building one day, and the guy asked me, "Hey, so you're done with your shift?" I said, "I don't work here. You just think I work here."
Right.
Which is what I want.
Right.
Right. And after, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 months of that, and Corey called me and said, "Hey, do you want to intern?"
So before you even interned, you were just
I was just here. I was just
for 3-4
here.
months.
I was. Mike had to get some surgery on his foot. I was carrying his briefcase around the building.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a testament to what a lot of younger aspiring, I mean, not just engineers, artists, producers, anybody who's trying to get in this business won't do.
Right.
Just from conversations I've had. I'm probably the only person, I've said this before on this podcast, that did not intern here, which is rare.
Right.
But it took the same, like I felt like I was interning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the same point, everybody here goes through, whether you're an engineer, marketing person, the manager at the front, like everybody goes through that like process. Why do you feel like, I mean, especially as you're the head of the engineer intern like program, right? So why is that important, especially working here at such a like dynamic or like premier studio in Atlanta?
I mean, so the first thing is that we hire from within, right? So if you even want to be in the building as an engineer, you have to be an intern, period, right? The second thing is that if you don't take your internship seriously, then to us it looks like you're not taking this seriously at all, right? Because even though people think that an internship is just an internship, we can tell how you're going to be in the room by how you're interacting with the clients when you're just going to grab them a soda from down the street, right? What happens if, I don't know, it's just one of those things where you can tell how someone will be here by how they follow the rules, by how they adapt to this place, right? Because you have to, you know what I mean? Because this is a completely different situation. There are plenty of studios out there and they don't run this way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, which was my point when I got here, is that I decided that I wanted to be here and do things the patchwork way. You know what I mean? And that's unique. So if you're not on board with that, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
And we won't know until you get in the building, which is why the way that I bring interns in is very simple. It's not necessarily this whole drawn out thing, but we have to have you in the building so we can see how you move.
Right.
Right.
And how, like, what does that process look like though? So you interview an intern or
Right.
they like send you a resume.
Right.
You're like, okay, we're looking for interns. And that doesn't always, like, how many interns do you usually have in rotation?
We've got, how many people do we have normally? Like 10? Yeah, about 10.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we've got, everybody does at least 2 shifts. And I try to keep people on a 1 day, 1 evening or night shift. That way they get to meet everybody. Because daytime here is very different
From nighttime. Yeah, for sure.
So,
Absolutely. And so not that many interns though. So, I mean, more than I expected, but
right.
10 or so. And so it's a little difficult, if anything, to get in the door. I mean, you said it yourself, like you were 3-4 months just kind of hanging around before you actually interned.
Right.
But then once you're in the door and you're actually working the shifts, at that point, what does it look like for the intern? Like, what are they doing? What are some of the responsibilities? How long does it usually last for those who maybe are successful or not successful? You know, just kind of gauging for those who might be listening or interested in the program.
Okay. So once you're in the building, basically it's turning over rooms. So basically setting the rooms back to one so that every client, when they walk in the door, they get the same experience, right? For larger, longer sessions, you may have to come in and out from time to time and check the trash and make sure things aren't kind of overflowing in the rooms. Doing food runs or whatever kind of run, you know what I'm saying? I've had people, you get sent for liquor, hard drives, food, wine,
So you need to be
snacks.
mobile.
Yeah. So you got to have a car. Yeah. You have to have a car. Some guy tried to come up here and say, hey, can I just use Uber? I was like, nah, bro, you got to have a car.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've had interns who biked.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was amazing. I sent that dude for something and he was back fast. I was like, bro.
Biking him to save his life.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Efficient.
That was tough. But yeah, so it's that. And then beyond that, so recently what's happened is, and I say recently just because it feels like that to me, but when I got here, you were basically on your own. You know what I'm saying? You were on your own merit. You were on your own drive and whatever you had in order to get here, right? And make it happen. But along the way, as these newer students started to come in, what we realized is that, or what Mike realized is that they needed an extra push. So now what happens is we have basically a continuing education going on here. And nothing, I tell them coming in the door that this is not school, but 101 basically teaches them what we need from them as an intern and some of the basics of that. 102 teaches them how to basically assist us. So setting up a microphone, a little more in-depth about the patch bay and the console. And then the 103 is actually with our head engineer, Mike. And he's giving them just the keys to the castle, basically. This is your basic setup to record somebody, right? This is how we set up our sessions. This is how we name our sessions, and this is how we organize things. If you can do all of these things when it's 4 a.m. and someone needs to come and record and you're the only one here and no one else is available, you can do that session in 1019, which is our seat room, right? And until I've said so, you keep these training wheels on. And then when I've reviewed a few of your sessions and you're good to go, then you can take them off and start using some of the other gear in the building. But it had to be that way because so many mistakes were being made by the young ones coming in who, I don't know if it was the schools, I don't know if it was the mindset, I don't know what it was, but it was just completely different from what I was used to and what I'd seen around here before then, right? They just weren't, I don't know. It seemed like they were expecting something to be given to them once they walked in the door. When you walk in here, you have to work for it.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
No matter what.
Yeah.
I think that mentality, and I'm probably a part of that generation of people who, are, you just anticipate, because what you see on the outside is like the glamour and the glitz of this like situation.
Exactly.
But not to harbor on that too long, I want to also ask you about because I know, just from seeing you work, like you don't just work with artists, you work with apps and choirs and groups. And just the range of clients. Speak to how you're able to utilize different muscles, essentially, like to be able to do different sessions, not just like what people might expect for you to just be in here with an artist.
Right.
That especially at Patchwork, you never know who comes in this building, like,
Exactly.
or what company or network or whatever. So, and I know you've had experience being able to work over the years. How long have you been at Patchwork? It's been about
10
years.
10 years. Yep.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
10 years here. But yeah, like what sort of clientele have you been able to work with, and like how have you been able to like utilize different parts of what you're skilled at, like your vocal production and et cetera?
Well, for me, it goes back to what I was saying about never stopping the learning process, right?
Right.
So anytime here was my process, right? They call me about a session. If it's something that's happening a few days out and it's something I've never done, then I start researching immediately. You know what I'm saying? I'll get here early in the morning, try to set up, figure it out before the client actually gets here, and ask questions if I got to go talk to Mike, if I got to go talk to one of my other engineers in the building, and do whatever I need to do to be prepared for that day.
Yeah.
Call the client, figure out exactly what they need, and then just go from there, right? And then once I've got it, then normally what I'll do is I'll set up a process for that, and then pass that on to other people. Because what I know is that if I figure something out, the more people I tell it to, the better I'm going to hold on to it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's usually how it happens. And then here, honestly, the band stuff, the choir stuff, the recording live instruments and all that just came from sitting in and helping out. You know what I mean? Because and that's one of the things that I think is kind of a lost art, and that's the sitting in thing. You know what I'm saying? And sitting in on sessions, basically. Whenever we had a live session, I was sitting in with Mike. Right. If D was doing a live session, whoever was doing a live session, I was sitting in on that. And honestly, I didn't care what I was sitting in on. I just wanted to know how to do everything. And then hopefully I would get to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the thing is, in a home studio and in my small space, I didn't have room to record a band. You know what I mean? I maybe have recorded a guitar one time.
Right.
But that was it.
Yeah.
You know? So when I got in the building and I was like, okay.
This is happening.
I need to be ready.
Facts.
You know?
See, you mentioned and you talked about a lot about the sacrifices that you made in terms of, I mean, you're married and you're married during the time that you were interning.
Well, I wasn't married during the time I was
weren't?
interning, but we had been together because me and
you
my wife have
referred
been
to her as your wife because she's your wife,
yeah,
obviously.
Yeah. We've been together for 20-something years.
That's amazing as well.
So,
happy anniversary. No, but still, the sacrifices, you were in a committed
definitely.
relationship. You were, and I know your wife works, but at a time you took on an internship. And even beyond that, the sacrifices of their home studio and just pursuing a career that you weren't. Just speak to that, and especially for those looking to intern and looking to break into the industry, even if they're not engineers, just why you have to make the sacrifice.
Well, I mean, the thing for me is that it's honestly, I feel like it's a requirement. You know what I mean? You have to throw yourself into this. If you don't, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing a disservice to the clients, right? Because they're walking in here, especially here, they're walking in here expecting something. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't deliver that, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Personally, you know what I'm saying? Why people don't just throw themselves completely into this process. But the other side of that is that I think the reason why I bring people in the way that I do is because you have to give people a chance to figure it out. Like even me, when I first walked in the building, I guess for the first 6 months or so, well, 4 or 5 months or so, I was stressed, super stressed, because I didn't have a job. I'm in here doing this and loving it. But at the same time, I was kind of falling out of love with music just because of everything that had happened to me before, right? And that kind of hurt, you know what I'm saying? But I got over it real quick, you know what I mean? Because I saw what was ahead of me. I saw all the work that was going on here. I saw some of the people that, I've wanted to work with my whole life coming into the building. And I knew if I progressed the way that I needed to, that I could work with some of those people.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And be a benefit and not, you know what I'm saying? But in order to do that, you know what I mean? I had to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's talk about some of the fondest memories you've had working here. You've been able to work on some dope projects. You were Grammy nominated for working with Faith Evans and the R&B Divas.
Yep.
I think that was 2014.
Yes.
Okay, what was 2014? Just what were some of your fondest memories? You spoke about seeing people that you always wanted to work with, but there's somebody, and I know in this business, especially as an engineer, it's not ideal to be starstruck or anything, but we're human. So is there a time where you're just oh my God, I can't believe I'm about to work with so-and-so?
I've never been starstruck.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm too even-tempered for that.
Yeah.
But I was extremely happy to be recording Dave Hollister.
Nice. You did something
Oh man, the first time that I worked with Regina Bell and she actually liked what I was doing,
Dope.
I was like, okay, I've arrived. You know what I'm saying? And then here's the thing. Beyond that, when I was sitting in a lot, and just actually seeing Gucci and his process, I was like, okay, yeah, I get it now. You know what I mean? This man, it works. This is for real, right? And once I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm in the right place now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of Gucci, well, not really just Gucci, but clients.
Right.
I mean, at the time, I don't know at what point he was in hearing that you were able to observe, but it was a different time for Gucci, I'm sure.
Yep.
And a lot of our clients, we have a range of clients, but just like working through like conflict resolution, even like working through where you're having to be an advocate for the studio, obviously, as an employee, but then also advocating for the client and making sure that they're comfortable and they're in a great environment for them.
Right.
How do you choose, like, to not play the fence or like to make those like tough decisions if you're in a place where you have to? Especially as a veteran, like at this point you've been here for some time and you like understand and are knowledgeable of like the things that you've seen.
Right.
So I'm just curious as to like how do you do that? How do you handle it?
I mean, I most times I establish my presence in the room very early. You know what I'm saying? Just from the way that I shake people's hands and say hello and, have a conversation with them as they're coming into the room. I make sure that they understand that this is my room.
Right.
Right. You are renting this space, but this is my room. You're not going to tear up my speakers. You're not going to tear up my console. You're not going to be spilling water over everything. And you're not going to just do whatever it is that you want to do. You came here to do X, Y, and Z. Right. That doesn't mean that you get to do whatever it is that you want to do. Right. And even some of the toughest ones, you know what I'm saying? I've worked with those guys and other people couldn't work with them. But because I established that relationship early on that, hey, this is what we're doing and that's it, then it's fine. You know what I'm saying? And I'm never overbearing. I'm never the mean guy. I'm just calm, even-tempered, and everybody just tends to respect that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I like that you said you establish up front, that you're in the room and that this is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, like, I think I've really only had one situation where I just didn't know how it was going to go, right? Not going to say any names, but
of course.
Client came in, brought a feature set right down next to me in our C room and lit up. And I said, you can't smoke in here. You know what I'm saying? Very matter of fact, nothing, no tone in my voice or anything, just very matter of fact, right? You can't smoke in here. Do you own this place? Is this your studio? No, sir, that's just the rules. You know what I'm saying? So at the time, we had a night manager and the guy who brought the feature in, you know what I'm saying? So he put it out, right?
Right.
But it could have gone bad because,
things happen.
Of who he is, right?
Right.
So the guy who brought him in went and talked to the night manager because I suggested, hey, we don't have anybody in our A room, right? I know that this is your process and this is what you need to do in order to do your thing, right? If you need to smoke a black and mild, then you can do it in the top booth, but we just need to clear it with the manager. He went and spoke with the manager. Manager said it was cool. Went upstairs. I couldn't see him, but we got it done. We had a nice little rhythm going, and it all worked out.
Right.
He came back downstairs, lit up again. I just glanced at him. He said, "Oh, my bad, bro," and just put it out. Because it was just nothing but respect. It wasn't one of those things where I was woofing up at him and being all big and bad. It's just, these are the rules, and I'm not going to break the rules for you.
Right. Yeah, I don't. What's one of your pet peeves about artists in the studio? Do you have like any pet peeves of when you're first working with a client or just, artists in general?
To be honest with you, I guess the only thing that kind of rubs it, and it doesn't even rub me the wrong way. It's just one of those things where you have to educate people, right? So a lot of times clients walk in the door expecting one thing, and then because of that, they're not prepared, right? So you wind up having to educate them on where they are and what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because they're used to Homeboy Studio, right? Where it's kind of a relaxed environment. If they're going to be in there 20 hours, they're just going to be in there 20 hours. It doesn't really matter. They can, take a break, throw a cookout, come back in, jump back on the mic, you know what I'm saying, go home for a couple of hours, chill for a minute, then come back. No, we've got this amount of time. We've got to get it done. And if you're not prepared, then we're kind of at a loss.
You're wasting time and money.
Yeah, and I'm very aware of your time and your money, and I don't want you to waste either. You know what I'm saying? I've actually stopped sessions. You know what I'm saying? So mixing session, someone comes in and they don't have all their files. Say, look, no harm, no foul. You didn't know. So here's what we need, right? You go home, you find that. We'll talk to whoever's in the office right now, get that sorted out. You're good. right? Because I don't want to. If I'm doing something for you, I want it to be right. And right now, it can't be right unless you bring me up, unless we have all the materials.
Right.
So once you get all that, you reschedule, and then we'll do it for real. Simple.
Simple.
Yeah.
I have to ask you one last thing before we wrap. Just
We
about.
got to go.
Yeah, kind of. I'm sorry. We're jam packed today. We ran
Right.
a little bit behind, but I got to ask you one more thing, just in terms of the voice acting and that side of things that you're able to do outside of just audio engineering.
Well,
No?
so what I've done is I've actually done a couple of political things one of my clients back in the day was Cabral Franklin, and he did a lot of political ads. He passed away, right?
Sorry.
And I held on to some of those ads, you know what I'm saying, just because I just couldn't bring myself to throw the stuff away, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, Curtis has come to me before and had me do some ads for some tutorials for the studio. And voiceover is something that once people told me that my voice sounded good and I started kind of feeling myself a little bit, okay, maybe it does, that I want to get into. And I guess recently someone has mentioned about maybe getting into that, and I was able to post up some of my
Former.
exactly.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? You know what I'm saying? People are loving it. We're
Yeah.
gonna see what's gonna happen.
No, you definitely should. I mean, especially when you literally, like, this is what you do. You
Yeah.
listen to sound all day. You listen to voices all day. I think,
Exactly.
And you're vocal producing and doing all that sort of thing. It kind of natural flow of things.
Yeah, I'm with it. I want to make some more money.
Make some more money. That's
Exactly.
what I'm talking about. Well, I know you're very efficient and you do great work, as all of the engineers here are and do. But if you have any last words of advice for an aspiring engineer who's looking to get into this internship program at Patchwork, or just to be a better engineer, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
You have to keep an open mind. You have to keep learning, right? And it's something that you're going to have to work for. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know a lot of kids that get out of school and they don't really have to work for it because there's so many people who want to do music. And it's a great thing, and I love that so many people can create and get their ideas out, but there's so many people wanting to do music. So you can come straight out of school, set up a studio, and you probably already got 5 built-in clients.
Right.
Right? But you ain't worked for nothing yet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're still in the learning process, which is fine, but you've got to go after it. You know what I'm saying? You've got to understand that that's just the beginning. You hadn't arrived yet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just a big proponent of putting in the work, right? And being realistic and honest with yourself, right? You are not the mix guy when you first step out of school, right? Unless you're some genius, which if you are, hats off to you. But I know I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? It took me 5 years to be a mix engineer here. And even then it was like, okay, I'm still learning that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you just got to really have an open mind about learning new things and keeping up with things and making sure that you're not getting stagnant, and understand, have a real, I don't know, just be self-aware. You know what I'm saying? Of where you really are.
Right.
Because if you're not, then your work is going to wind up here. And someone's going to be asking us what's wrong with that. And we're going to say that sucks. Right? And then what? Right? Now you've lost that client to us because we've put in the work, not just because we got all this gear, because most of the people in here can do this with practically nothing.
Right.
But it's because we put in the work here. Right? So it matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys can hear more about all of the things, all of the engineering things. They have, you guys have a podcast, or you produce episodes for the Engineers Corner,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
And we do workshops. We're accessible. So Luther, tell them that they can find you on social media if you do that thing, or if they can reach out to you any other place.
So I am at L Banks the Mixer on Instagram, and Luther Banks on Facebook. And then if you want to, if you're an aspiring engineer and you want to be an intern here, just go to our website and just click the links till you get to the, you know what I'm saying?
Internship program?
Exactly.
Nice.
And send your resume in. You know what I mean? I'm reading all resumes. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure you spell the name of the studio correctly, or I'm deleting your email.
Facts.
Period.
Facts. That's the simple things. The simple
Exactly.
things. So thank you, Luther. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you much more success as you continue your journey as an amazing sound engineer here. And if you guys want to reach out to him, please do so. As always, you can find this podcast at IDM Podcast on social media, as well as myself at Sammy Approved on all social media platforms. Thank you. Thanks, Luther.
All right. Thank you.
Sonic.